Tobin Seagel is a professional biologist, born and raised in North Vancouver. His first love was always skiing, cutting his teeth on the local slopes of Grouse Mountain. He got distracted from skiing in his youth and spent many years climbing and playing field hockey, only to retire from those sports to come back to skiing with a more determined focus. Over the past 10 years, he has been free skiing on expeditions around the world, including trips to BC, Alaska, the Yukon, Baffin Island, Kashmir, Europe, and South America. Some of these expeditions have been to very remote regions with little or no support. Tonight, Tobin will talk to us about isolation. Here's Tobin Seagel.
I'll start with a quote from Sigurd Olsen. I have found that people go to the wilderness for many things, but the most important of these is perspective. My name is Tobin Seagel. I'm from North Vancouver, currently making my home in Squamish. I like to ski, and over the past decade, skiing has taken me around the world to some of its most remote reaches. Northern Baffin Island to ski Coolars for the Skier's Journey episodes, while camped out on the sea ice for a month. The Tombstone Range in northern Yukon to ski under the northern lights in an area rarely visited in the winter. Kashmir, India, skiing with the monkeys in the foothills of the Himalaya. Denali, Alaska, to ski out the highest point in North America. And let's not forget about the beautiful coast mountains of British Columbia, running from here out to Alaska. Vast amounts of little visited and rarely skied terrain. Just out our back door is some of the most remote and isolated landscape you can imagine. On these trips, everything we need, we bring. We pack in all our food, fuel, shelter, and gear. It's to use sparingly and never wasted. You become a mini society with all the challenges that come with that. Politics, group dynamics, and difficult decisions. Your entire life exists and is exhibited in a very small bubble. You can really see and feel how group decisions impact the individual, and individual decisions impact the group. You learn to work together, to be a team. You learn that if you don't look after your little space, no one else will. Tents and stoves are meticulously maintained. Skis and bindings are thoroughly checked before they're used. Food is rationed. There's an old saying that goes, there's old mountaineers and bold mountaineers, but there aren't old, bold mountaineers. All of our actions, our decisions, our risks are calculated. If they weren't, skiing these sorts of lines wouldn't be a long-term endeavor. Accountability for our actions is ours. We are free. Rescue or help from outside our group in the event of a serious accident isn't a reality. When we went to Baffin Island to ski Coolars, we knew it could take the Coast Guard 4 days to arrive from the Maritimes if we needed help. Once home from these trips, I usually receive a lot of questions from people about what it's like to be out there skiing big lines in the middle of nowhere. Is it scary? Is it dangerous? You must have no fear, which I can assure you is far from the truth. I came to start wondering if people could appreciate the level of remoteness and isolation we experienced. I have found it difficult to convey what it is like, despite all my best efforts. Upon reflection, I realized it's all to do with our ability to visualize space and scale. In time, I started seeing people living in isolation all around me. Homeless people walking down the street behind my apartment, their shopping cart, their everything, isolated, lonely, helpless. During travels in India, I started seeing how even large crowds, people are left behind, impoverished, isolated. Leafing through a magazine, I was reminded of the famous image taken by Apollo 17 in 1972, which contributed to a surge in global consciousness. The Earth, a blue marble in an expanse of black. Then, a few months ago, NASA released the first ever image of Earth from Mars, a star in a black sky. I came to realize we're all isolated all the time. Our planet is isolated. Everything we need, we have here on Earth, to be used sparingly and never wasted. Our group decisions impact the individual. Our individual decisions impact everyone else. We need to learn to work together to be a team, since if we don't look after this little space, no one else will. Skiing has given me many things, but the most important is perspective. I'll finish this talk with one of my favorite quotes from Sam Cooke. Each of us has an up north. It's a time and a place far from here and now. It's a map on the wall, a dream in the making, a tugging at one's soul. For those who feel the tug, who make the dream happen, who put the map in the packsack and go, the world is never quite the same again. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to Jordan Manley, Chris Christie, and Ruben Krabba for allowing me to use the images from trips we've been on together. And another thank you to all my trip partners over the years.
Isolation. You know, actually, I relate to isolation very well, and it's one of the magic moments out in Antarctica, being so far away from everything else, and it's very intimidating when you're out there. Yet you kind of crave it. What do you miss most? You know, when you're out there. I get that question all the time when I'm in a very remote location. When you're in isolation, and after that, what do you like most about isolation?
I think what you miss most is you get a different perspective on community and relationships, and yeah, you kind of learn to revalue those sorts of things. It's really odd that things that you take for granted at home, all of a sudden you find yourself thinking about them, and I think one of the previous speakers actually kind of mentioned that as well. But it's true, you do gain a different perspective on that. What was the second question?
Yeah, well, when you're hurt, but you crave it too, and I find those magic moments of being alone and being so out there. You know, what about it draws you to it so much, to be out there in a sense?
For me, I don't really actually think that any of these trips we deliberately planned related to isolation. The concept of isolation actually came up based on feelings and discussions we experienced while on the trips themselves. Really, usually when I'm planning a trip, we're like looking for something that looks pretty fun to ski, and then we decide to go and ski it. And some of them are kind of closer, and some of them are kind of further away. I guess we just don't really shy away from the ones that are far away.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Tobin Seagel, everyone.